Good morning, Coolest Coast, and welcome to Coffee with Kristin and Tina. I'm Tina Prigge of Vagabond Creative Studio. I am joined by Kristin Odell of Grow with KLO. We are both moms and entrepreneurs, and we are so happy to see you this morning. Morning, Kristin.
Good morning.
Good
Cheers.
morning. I have a little bit different mug this morning.
I tell you about this, Tina. It looks fancy.
I'm a mermaid at heart. Anytime there's water, I want to be in it.
Like the water behind you and your beautiful screen today.
Exactly. If I suddenly disappear, that's where I am. I dived into the lake.
I love it. I love it.
So this morning, Kristin, we're both moms and we're both entrepreneurs. And I think both of those endeavors require an immense amount of creativity, don't you think?
I do. I mean, the days don't run without a certain level of creativity, without a doubt. So you're absolutely right.
And so I think that, creativity can also be misunderstood. It doesn't necessarily have to specifically be being a master at, drawing a portrait perfectly or being able to, wield a pen and paintbrush. Creativity comes in so many different forms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so guys, Tina and I were just kind of prepping a few minutes before and talking about this. I don't feel like I'm naturally creative. I feel like I'm a good problem solver. But the way my brain thinks, I'm a natural executor. And so I don't feel like I have this creativity that we're talking about. But I love the concept of being creative and open to ideas. And, maybe this is a good time to bring in that bobber, Tina. What do you think?
Let's do it.
So guys, go ahead, Tina.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, this is Manitowoc's newest mural, and it's down by the wastewater treatment facility along the Lake Michigan shoreline. And it's one of the first things that people coming off of the Lake Michigan car ferry see now when they arrive in Manitowoc.
Right. So this is just that whole idea of, let's be honest, the wastewater treatment plant isn't real great to look at. But I love that there was vision to say, let's take something that maybe isn't so nice looking and make it into something that, first of all, looks beautiful. It's so appealing. I love the vision of turning this into a bobber. And I actually, the first time I saw it, I laughed out loud. I just thought like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely the best. So I would love to just give a high five to whoever came up with that idea, because I think it's great.
Yeah, well, the art was designed and executed by Yonder, which is Aaron Labonte and Don Crumpos. Aaron and Don are responsible for quite a few of the murals that you see around Manitowoc. I love that they are creative and sharing that creativity with Manitowoc.
Yeah.
Patty, good morning.
Okay, guys, so I have a confession. Patty and I hang out pretty often, and apparently she's calling me out here and saying I have creativity in the dessert department. So this last weekend, we were lucky enough to hang out with their family, and we had Oreo tort. And
is that what you posted a picture of with Doug just about to dig into?
No, actually, that was something different. So for Patty and Jason, I had this like bag of cookie sandwiches that somebody had given me that they were all crushed up. And so we made Oreo tort out of them, because that was delicious. Now, the tort you're mentioning was something that Doug came up with along with my mom. We should have gotten a picture of this. I didn't realize this was going to come up. Thanks, Patty. No, the one that Doug was eating was peanut butter cookie dough on the bottom, which, I mean, how could that be bad just to start with? And then cream cheese and peanut butter and powdered sugar, and then bananas, and then banana pudding, and then Cool Whip, and then cooked bacon on the top. And
Did you just say bacon?
Bacon.
Okay.
It is the Elvis Presley. That is, Elvis was bananas and peanut butter and bacon. So that Doug was imagining this he had moments of creativity while we were gone for the 4th of July. So he kind of came up with this, but my amazing mom brought it to life. So
that's amazing. Would you be willing to share those recipes in the chat after the show?
Sure. So Patty, thank you. I'm humbled. I guess I didn't think about creativity in the dessert department.
Patty, thanks for thinking creatively about creativity. That is awesome.
Yeah. So guys, since we've got obviously followers tuned in, we want to hear about where or what your creative outlet is. So clearly I didn't think my creative outlet was desserts. That never crossed my mind, but obviously it's true. So tell us about what kind of creative outlets do you have? When I think about creativity, I think about art and music and painting and all these amazing things. I don't think about desserts, clearly. I'm in my own boxes. So tell us about your creativity. Tell us how you get out of the box.
I love it. And as a matter of fact, I think Jason our producer has a meme to put up on screen about creativity.
So I want you to use your creativity, but here's a list of things you have to include. So I just love this. I think it's hysterical because it's basically, I want you to be creative, but here's all the rules you have to follow to be creative.
Right. So it's counterintuitive, including the phrase "you have to" and creativity don't necessarily go together. They don't support one another.
Right. That's exactly right. I love it.
And so speaking of creativity and speaking of our producer, Jason, we do have a special guest today, and we are going to be joined by Jason Prigge to talk about his unique approach to creativity. So Jason, welcome to Coffee with Kristin and Tina.
Good morning, Jason.
Hello. Sorry, I was just getting something ready. I wanted to create a banner here or something on the screen that engages people to give us their questions about how they're creative and how they're creative every day. So anyway, yeah, I am at a separate undisclosed location deep underground in a COVID-free bunker right now. So I am so happy to join you guys. How you doing?
Welcome. We're so happy to see you this morning on Coffee with Kristin and Tina.
I have a question. Am I the first male guest?
Yes.
Yes.
You're not the first male participant. We've had some males participate via chat, but you are the first physical male guest.
I just broke the glass ceiling. It's awesome. It's a good feeling.
So you guys,
right.
Jason is always behind the scenes for Tina and I, making a lot of magic happen. So it's fun to have you up in front with us today, Jason.
Well, thanks. It's fun to be up front. We're talking about one of my favorite subjects, and it's really one of the superpowers that I have in life that I developed at a very early age. So when we talk about creativity, and I think about like why I'm creative and how I got to be this way, I lived kind of an unconventional life. So when I was young, I was raised by my dad for a long time, and we were very poor. And so my older brother Brian and I, we would save up our paper route money, and we would go buy bike parts. Now this was in the 80s, and everybody had these BMX bikes, and they were so cool and running around with bikes, and we couldn't afford bikes. So we went to garage sales and to thrift stores and used our money. And what we did was we bought these junker bikes. And then we became like the Wright brothers, right? We started fixing these things and making all of these different hybrid, like hack bikes. So we put a 10-speed fork with a 20-inch frame, see if that works. Oh, why doesn't it work? And then we'd fix it up. And my dad was a mechanic, so sometimes we had all these tools at our disposal. So it's like, how can we make something out of nothing? And that's really like generally the story of my life, making something out of nothing. So when I was younger, I wanted to hang out with my older brother, and he loved Garfield. If anybody from the 80s remember Garfield, the Jim Davis cartoon, and he knew how to draw Garfield, my older brother, and he could draw it perfectly. And so to hang out with him, and I wanted to be like him and be with him, right? I was like, okay, I'm going to learn how to draw too. And I couldn't draw Garfield to save my life. He was always a pro. The thing is, he had taught himself how to do it, just like we teach ourselves how to like brush our teeth or drive a car. He just taught himself how to do that, and it was in his muscle memory. Well, I started to learn how to draw, and I taught myself how to draw. So at a very young age, I did that because, like I said, we didn't have much money. So in order to create worlds, in order to create playthings, I would play with a pencil and a paper. And when I was younger, when I was in grade school, I think it was about second or third grade, my teacher called my dad and said, Jason is constantly writing on the desk. A graphite pencil on the desk. You remember those old desks with the flip tops? I was always drawing on that. And she just got so angry with me. And so she called my dad in, and she's like, Jason's always drawing on the desk. He is never paying attention in class. I don't know what to do with him. And my dad, in his very simple wisdom, said, why don't you put paper on the desk? And that's exactly what she did. She would put craft paper on the top of the desk. I would fill that thing up, and then she'd replace it. Now, my mind, I could also listen to her, and I was paying attention in class. So I was able to do those two things. Actually, doodling is proven to help spur creativity. Some of the great leaders in our world have been doodlers, compulsive doodlers, from JFK to Martin Luther King, always doodling stuff. And then what that does is it opens up your mind to other thoughts, right? So it's kind of a form of meditation if you think of it like that. And one of the things that I think is really valuable, you guys were saying about a box. I don't even see a box. There's no box. I don't see how there can even be a box. And that's just how I've trained myself to live my life. So creativity for me is like a muscle. So I'm sorry, you guys know me, I can go off. I haven't even had much caffeine. Wait until I get a couple cups in me.
So unless you're a cat, you really should think outside of the box. But if there is no box, wow, that's pretty cool.
So there's so many ways that we can be creative, and thanks, Patty. What a great story. You know, the things that I do in my life to be creative, and one of the reasons why we called our business Vagabond Creative Studio is because of this ability to look at things in a different way. If you remember the movie Dead Poets Society, for instance, Robin Williams' character, who was the teacher there, what he did with his students was he had a desk in front of the class, and he would have the students step up on that desk and look around. And sometimes that's all it takes, is a different perspective on a problem. And I don't think being creative means you're an artist. I think being creative means you're a human. I think we're all artists, and we all have these creative ways of solving problems, right? So think about it like even when you're doing the dishes. I did the dishes this morning. I see the shock on Tina's face. I did the dishes today, and you have to be creative when you put the dishes in the rack. So like, okay, I have to put these smaller dishes here in order to get these big dishes here. And then I like build this tower of dishes where it's a kind of like a Jenga tower. If you pull one out, the whole thing will crumble. But anyway, you got to be creative with that. Just in those simple ways, we can be creative every day. And so what I do, and I'm going to bring up something really quick here. I kind of hijacked the show. Sorry, guys. But anyway, this is something I came up with because it's really important to me. And this kind of describes my process. I experience the situation. So if I'm faced with a problem, I experience it. I don't try to at first, and Tina will be like, yeah, right. At first, I don't try to get like frustrated or angry about it. I try to just experience it. Okay, this is a problem. I just got into an accident, or I need to come up with $300 for whatever it is, or whatever. You experience that in its entirety. And okay, this is real. This is in the practical world. And then the V stands for Visioneer. And this is a term that actually Tina came up with. And Visioneer means I'm going to Visioneer a solution. And in that solution, that's where your creative mind is engaged. And that's where you stand on the desk and look at the problem in a different way. And that's where you like kind of, I don't know, get a different perspective on things. Maybe ask some other people. Then you can formulate a solution. And then you have to execute. And actually, the execution is the easiest part. So you have to really get engaged, experience the problem, visioneer a solution, and then execute that solution that you come up with in your mind. It's just something that you live with every day, and it's a muscle. So you have to exercise it. Just like, you know, my son Teek and I are starting to lift weights. He's in high school, and we're lifting weights. It's a muscle. So if I miss a couple of days of lifting weights, and anybody who works out knows this, my muscles are going to atrophy. They're not going to be good. So what I would suggest people who want to be more creative, get a book, write down your ideas, write down your goals, get creative in everything. Look at a situation and how can I do this differently? Why am I doing it this way? Is it because I was raised this way? Or is it because I believe this is the right way and this is the way it's always been done? That's one of I hate that phrase the most of all. This is the way we always have done it. Like, no, there's always a new way. So anyway, I'm gonna be quiet for a second. Sorry.
The way we
get energetic
is the box that we end up putting ourselves in. But Jason, I really think that formula for creativity that you have is valuable and can really be applied across all aspects of our lives, right? Whether it's our work, whether it's our relationships, whether it's being a mom or a dad, really approaching and solving problems in a creative way is something we all have the capability to do as long as we allow ourselves to do it.
So I think this is a good point, Jason, to bring in those fort pictures.
Oh yeah.
Last week, as you guys know, it was either really hot or raining. And so our girls spent some time playing in the basement, and they're constantly hijacking clothespins, hair bows, hair ties, like anything they can get their hands on to build a fort, and all of the blankets in the entire house. So they came up with this fort last week. Somehow they figured out that if they lifted those ceiling tiles, they could get the blankets to hang in the ceiling tiles. And then, so the shot on the right is just kind of the fort standing back a little bit. The shot on the left is actually a room within the fort. So they have blankets down separating the space, and then they moved end tables in, and they have, their grocery things and just all kinds of stuff in there. And I cannot even tell you how many, yes, friends, unsupervised hours they spent playing and being creative in there. And I love that they figured out how to hang this stuff up and do this without, I literally didn't intervene at all. I let them just play.
Right. So they had to solve problems for themselves while figuring out how to hang the blankets up. And these are memories that they are going to have forever. Like when they're our age and they're looking back, they'll be like, remember when we built those cool forts in the basement?
Right. Yeah. I'm actually so thankful I have a picture of it, because when I walked downstairs, I ran down to get something out of our basement refrigerator, and I was like, oh, there are things hanging from the ceiling. Oh my gosh. And I think historically my first instinct would have been like, what the heck's going on down here? But I was so in awe of what they did that I was like, you guys, this is the coolest thing you've ever done. So
that really is a boss fort. Are parents allowed, or will they let you go inside?
We are totally allowed.
Oh, Patty, thanks so much for your comment. Really great perspective this morning. 2020 is pushing all of us into thinking differently and creatively solving problems. Yeah. That's right. Rather than just throwing the towel in on this whole year, if we can approach it creatively, we can get through.
I think you brought up something really interesting about children. Picasso, there's a famous saying by Picasso, and I'm going to paraphrase it, rip it apart here, but he said that most children, or all children, are artists. It's that quality they lose when they become adults. So when we're a child, our imagination, we make believe, right? Mm-hmm. But we lose that when we're adults. When I was in high school, I used to daydream a lot, and my teacher would come and slam on the desk, Priggy, and I'd be like, well, stop sleeping. And I'm like, no, I'm not sleeping. I'm daydreaming. I'm visioneering who I want to be when I grow up. I'm like looking at the grains in this desk and picking out faces. You're just teaching me U.S. history. That can be learned in a book. What I'm doing is, I would get self-righteous about it a little bit. But the thing is that when you're a child, you have this innate ability to just come up with stuff, because the world is so new and it's so beautiful. When we really stop and look at a color, that sounds really kind of simple to do. Stop and look at a color and then kind of feel, wow, that color is so different from this color. What other colors that's not blue, that's turquoise. Well, what colors make turquoise? And you just think about it in your mind, and then you think, what color would go good with that? And this is, something that anybody can do, and it's exercise, like I said before. But I love that fort stuff. We used to do that when I was a kid as well. It's great.
Last year, Teak, for his birthday, had a couple of boys sleeping over, and I was upstairs working in my home office, and it was about, 11 p.m. And all of a sudden I just didn't like the way the conversation was going, and I went running downstairs, and we've got a TV hanging over the fireplace, and I got down there just as one kid had a blanket and one kid had the duct tape, and they were going right for the TV to be their anchor point. I'm like, no, stop right there. That is not going to work.
Yeah.
Jason, what advice would you have for parents? I have my oldest daughter, Grace, is, I would say, highly creative. She loves music. She loves arts, the maybe more traditional definition of it. But what advice would you have for parents in terms of fostering that creativity? And also, how do you balance letting them doodle and giving them space to be able to not only retain knowledge, but to have that outlet?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and this is something that was not always prevalent in my life, was encouraging, right? So I would have whenever I would go out for sports, it seems like my teachers and everything would get behind that. They were like, oh, Jason, you're a big guy. You're going to be a great football player. And I also played hockey when I was younger. So, hey, hockey, that's great. We're going to come out and everybody supports the game and they have pep rallies and it's just awesome. There was never a pep rally in the art department. You know, there was nothing like that. And when I would have an art show, it would be just a few people showing up. I think one of the things that we've done with our own family and our own son, who's very smart, has an analytical mind, but also has creativity, and this is all credit to my lovely wife Tina, is she has taken his art and displayed it. So a lot of people are like, oh, our home, and I get like this too, our home needs to look a certain way, and I want to be in control of what hangs on the walls, and it's got to look like this when company comes over. But the truth is, the pieces of art that we've hung of teaks are the conversation starters. My paintings, yeah, they're pretty and everything, but wow, look at what that kid made. Isn't that cool? And encouraging that and framing it and putting it up like it's actually an important piece of art, which it is. That instills confidence in your child, right? And balancing what you have to do with what you want to do has always been a problem for me. So we always want to go towards the candy of life. We always want to go towards that thing that makes us feel happy. This is what triggers the dopamine in our brains, right? To keep on going and to do things that make us happy. Well, one of the things that I would suggest that parents do is to not only allot time for creativity, like, okay, we're going to have an hour where here, we have this room or we have this, whatever you want to do, you can do it creatively. You can't watch TV. You can't play video games. Other than that, have at it, right? And then what that does is like, well, that's interesting. See, I think boredom is a good thing. When you're bored, that actually spurs on creative thoughts. And in our lives, we're so hustle bustle. And even with kids, it's like, oh, you got to study, you got to do this. When you take a time out with them, that's awesome. Or do this assignment and, you can have a half hour of drawing time. Then we're going to come back and do something else. Give them little rewards or treats along the way. That's a couple of teachers really found out that was the way to inspire me. When I was in high school, I was failing all my classes. And then I met somebody. Her name was Julie, and she was an art teacher. And I really wanted to learn how to draw. Well, I wanted to learn how to paint. At that point in time, the vision for myself was to be Van Gogh. I was going to travel the world. I didn't care if I sold a painting. I just wanted to paint. So what she would do is say, Jason, I will teach you how to draw. But first you have to read, this history book. First you have to do a report on this Hemingway book. I really want you to look at biology and really tell me what you think about, genetics and how that plays into and I was like, what? And so I would do it. And the treat was that she would teach me how to draw. And I would give an oral report. And it's because of that I got into some advanced classes and did really well. So I present really well orally. And so I would consume the content with her. And what we'd do is she'd be my study buddy. And what we'd do is I would be the only one in class. Everyone was writing papers. I would give my paper orally. And I was able to do that. And I was able to ace a couple of college credits in high school by doing that. So it's really about the treat and what really makes those endorphins pop in your brain and getting your child to really embrace not only the hard work it takes to get through school, but also the creativity and the fun they could have. They're only young once. And I would say don't stifle it and hang their art.
Right. Avoid the temptation too of shutting something down too soon, because, a masterpiece doesn't usually result from the first try. So like if a child is learning how to play an instrument, for example, it might sound like banshees fighting for a while until they figure it out. And, like if you're a crabby grandpa or something and you're like, shut that down, like that doesn't help them explore and work it out. And so it's a little bit of suffering sometimes to get to the end goal.
Good. Here's a comment from Race. I love helping my kids with their art, cardboard boxes, and projects. Their imagination inspires me. I have to actively work at not automatically saying no to their ideas or the supplies that they need. Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's easy as an adult in the hustle and bustle of the day to think, no, we're not going to stop and do that. We're not going to bring all that stuff out now. But I agree.
I like, Raisa, what you said about being inspired by their creativity and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, if you're the one doing the vacuuming, I'm not sure that's a good idea.
That reminds me of a great quote I saw about
Whoop.
coronavirus and explaining the coronavirus and how it spreads. It's like 9 people working on a craft project, and 1 person is using glitter. So how many people have glitter on their projects? All 9 of them, right?
If you want to play with glitter, send your kids over to Patty's house. She has a glitter accepted basement.
I'm coming over.
There's no glitter at Casa de Odell.
So yeah. I just wanted to put this up. If anybody has any other ideas while we're still on the line here of how they are creative, please comment. Put something in the comments, and we'll get your comment up here and discuss it.
Yeah, I think sometimes for me, I think with a lot of execution related skills. So I sometimes see problem solving as a way that I use my creativity, right? So I'm faced with a problem, whether it's with my business or something else. And so finding those solutions is a lot of times how I think my creativity shows up. But I also, just even I'm thinking about coaching softball right now, the strategy and the technique of getting a girl to hit the ball. There's all different ways of achieving that goal and helping them get to that goal. So, I would love to just hear about how do people show up with their creativity, or in what lanes of their life does creativity show up? Because so often it doesn't.
And how are you inspired by someone else's creativity? For example, your kids, for example, your partner. Fortunately, my partner inspires me every day, which is pretty cool.
Well, mine does too.
And Kristin, you inspire me too.
Tina, I think you're equally as talented, right? You've done design work for me before. So where do you get inspiration from, or how do those ideas come to you?
Thanks. It goes kind of back to that Zen that Jason was talking about, where if your hands are busy, it kind of frees your mind, right? I used to spend time crocheting stuff, and I found that when my hands were occupied doing something they knew what to do, something kind of repetitive, it really expanded the mind. So I like putting myself in those kinds of situations. Maybe it's a bike ride, maybe it's a swim, maybe it's a walk, where I'm doing something, it really frees up my mind, and connections just start to get made. I feel like it's kind of like one of those old coffee pots, and there's constantly stuff percolating around, and I just needed to give it the chance to, like Legos, connect up and build something cool.
Sure. You actually just made me think of something. So a lot of times I will do things like load the dishwasher or clean the kitchen up, or even do laundry in complete silence. I don't have the radio on. I don't have anything on. And Doug will often come home and say, why don't you have music on? Or why isn't the TV on? And I use that silence to let my brain just work. And I can go hours without having nothing on. And I just find that it lets me process through whatever it is going on in my head. And like you said, a lot of times really cool ideas come out of that because I'm giving myself space where there's no other interactions other than whatever meaningless job I'm doing with my hands.
Yeah, but again, it doesn't take a lot of thought, right? Like if you're scrubbing the bathroom or something, that's kind of that rote memory. You don't have to put a lot of brain power into it. And so it does allow your brain to make those connections. It's giving yourself that space to think things through. I think sometimes we almost get into those boxes we were talking about earlier if we have too much busy time where we're forcing our brains to do busy work and not giving them that chance to air out and connect thoughts.
Yeah, allow yourself to be bored.
Mm-hmm. I think the whole idea too of the ideas always come in the shower. I don't know if you guys have it. It happens to me all the time. And I think it's because it is a space where we're not on our phones in the shower. We're not giving our kids instructions in the shower. We're not doing anything other than showering. And that's when the boom, here's another idea. Holy cow.
I agree. Wow, this has been such a great conversation. And I saw that Patty just posted a comment that she's not sure if she's creative, but just based on the comments, Patty, that you share with us during these shows, I am confident that you are creative.
I think she is a creative parent. The way that just her whole parenting style and her approach to how she handles her kiddos, I think is just creative all by itself. So there. since you threw me out with the dessert thing earlier, I will return a compliment.
Well, this has been an awesome conversation. We have only just scratched the surface of this topic, but I've loved having this conversation with you, Jason, and with you, Kristin. Thanks to everybody that participated and shared your own comments. We will look forward to catching up with you next week on Coffee with Kristin and Tina.
Make it a great day, guys.